we're gonna open the State of the Town tonight and ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point, the town manager is going to come up and give his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all of the crowd of people in the audience. The first State of the Town address I actually attended and didn't speak at, there were probably 100 people there. So I don't know what that says about me. So I'm going to try something different because it's such a small group, even though there are probably thousands of people watching at home on television. Usually you sit there and you wonder, how long is this going to take and how much longer? Well, I'm going to tell you that I'm probably going to be speaking for 26.7 minutes. So you don't have to watch your clocks or anything like that. You just now, you know. And that's thanks to the technology on Google. So here I go. First of all, thank you, President Clark, Representative D'Amelia, Sue, school board members. It's really a pleasure to have you here, and obviously thank you to the council for allowing me to go first. I've never been in this position with my back to the council, so I'm not sure what's really going to happen. But once a year, who knows? Who knows where we'll go? So good evening, and thank you for either attending or listening to the annual State of the Town address over the BTV airwaves or the website. And more importantly, thank you and thanks to the council for allowing me to give the State of the Town address and for working in such a challenging and exciting town. Bridgewater's full of vitality and volunteerism, and with such dedicated employees and volunteers, we're very lucky. Over 4 years ago, I set out to bring a new culture to Bridgewater, and the culture of professionalism. And we've talked about that a lot internally and externally. But we also set out to stabilize our finances and show our taxpayers that every dime that they gave us was well spent. Told the council that it would take probably 5 years of really diligent work to turn the corner, and I'm happy to report today that we are a professional organization, our finances are stabilized, and the town is certainly headed in the right direction. I'd like to begin my portion of tonight's meeting, State of the Town address, by highlighting areas in which the town made a lot of progress in 2017, and then lay out my thoughts about our agenda for 2018 and beyond. 2017 was a good year, but we did have some notes of sadness. 2017 saw the passing of our Conservation Commission Chair, Dick Monteith. Dick was a reliable and respected leader who was committed to a better Bridgewater, and I certainly will miss his calm approach to very difficult issues and his obvious love of teaching. But 2017 also saw some good things. We wished our longtime town attorney, Mark Gilday, success as a newly appointed Superior Court judge. Mark's work week usually started on Sunday and ended on Saturday. And it was usually an 18-hour day, 6 or 7 days a week. So I suspect his new position is giving him a lot of free time, which he probably doesn't know what to do with, but never mind. Since our last gathering, Councillor Kevin Perry had to give up his seat on the council because he and his family had moved to a new district, a new precinct in town. But I certainly appreciated Kevin's steady demeanor and his thoughtful approach to town issues, and I'll miss his free medical advice as well. We welcomed several new department heads. Steve Solari joined us as our building official. Early last year, he quickly worked through a backlog of permit applications and continues to implement a customer-friendly approach to his work. Scott Boyce joined us as collector-treasurer from the Southfield Redevelopment Authority, where he ran its financial operations. In short time, he has already proved to be a valuable team member who brings a deep municipal knowledge and curiosity about municipal finance and government operations. He has joined a finance team that we have very methodically built over the past several years. Angela Chandler, who joined us as interim collector-treasurer in 2016, is staying on as a consultant to fully implement a number of our financial initiatives. During her service as interim, she dug into a lot of ongoing problems and made sure that we were pointed in the right direction. We have also recently welcomed Jennifer Burke, who steps into the role of Community and Economic Development Director. Jennifer has experience and expertise which will directly benefit our downtown and economic development efforts, and I certainly look forward to working very closely with her as we take our development plans and ideas and turn them into reality. Finally, I looked inward to fill the position of Assistant Town Manager early in the year. Kim Williams has been a steady presence in the town of Bridgewater for over 20 years. Her dedication to the Bridgewater cause has been unparalleled, and she has seamlessly stepped into her new position. I've given her a full plate of work, probably more than a full plate of work, but she honestly consistently outperforms her statewide peers. In 2017, the Town Council approved changes to the town charter, which, if approved by the legislature and the voters, will make needed changes to the way we conduct business and streamline and clarify the way we do our work. The process began several years ago. Councilors Loesch and Gallagher's, prior actually to Councilor Loesch and Gallagher's first election to the council, they served on the town's first charter committee and were instrumental in making recommendations to the council. And while the charter change process has proved to be quite lengthy, which is probably an understatement, in reality, it's working exactly the way it should, methodically and with great care, really just as any constitutional change should. We have continued to implement the new administrative code. This has meant changes to committees and staff roles in many cases. In some respects, it has been a challenging transition, which has sometimes been met with resistance. But I think we've guided these changes with great sensitivity to how things used to be done, and to the folks who have seen a lot of their roles shift as members of boards and committees. On the labor front, in 2017, we negotiated 3 collective bargaining agreements with our employees, which finalized our transition to a well-defined and consistent salary matrix. We have ensured that all bargaining unit employees are paid fairly, and we've made changes to agreements which ensure that employees can be stable in their positions. And I do want to take just a moment to recognize 3 of the units that we bargained with last year, specifically the firefighters, police officers, and our DPW employees. They have been full participants in our efforts to stabilize and strengthen the town's fiscal health, and certainly our future together. In 2017, we continued to focus on the hiring process and the thoughtful approach we use to fill every vacancy. We spent a lot of time and effort to centralize and formalize a process that has for years been simply an afterthought. We've recognized how important it is to hire the right people at the right time to do the right job. We also recognize how important it is to hold employees accountable for work product and how critical it is to document performance. In 2017, we achieved a milestone in the lengthy process to repair the Mitchell School. Thanks to the superintendent and the support of the school board, the Massachusetts School Building Authority accepted the town into its competitive grant funding program, and the town's voters approved the first step in making sure we can create a learning space that's safe and suitable for Bridgewater children. In 2017, we grappled with the issues of recreational marijuana. We created a marijuana ad hoc committee, which has provided steady and well-informed advice on a whole host of issues related to the use of recreational marijuana. And while I think the council was probably fairly split on most of the major components surrounding this particular issue, it eventually voted to ban the retail sales of recreational marijuana in Bridgewater, but allow a wholesale component to this new industry. And certainly now that the state's Cannabis Control Commission has issued regulations, we'll likely have a little bit more work to do in the coming months to fine-tune what we have in Bridgewater. But really more importantly, the marijuana issue highlighted something that's been talked about in Bridgewater since the change in government. With this particular issue, residents have found that they have a voice, that they can advocate for what they believe is right, and it's helped to properly draw a sharp distinction between the policy-setting role of this council and the operational role of the town manager and the staff. And honestly, this form of government thrives when those two roles are clearly defined and delineated. In 2017, we hoped that we would secure grant funding to rebuild Elm Street, our major industrial corridor. Unfortunately, that did not happen. In the place of grant funding, we're now looking at several financing options which we can use to get that very important project done, including one item which is on the agenda for tonight's meeting. But the Elm Street project and the hard work we've done to try to secure the grant funding has highlighted another issue, which has been brewing actually for several years, in which professional municipal managers have been dreading, but expecting. The federal government's recently unveiled infrastructure initiative has already laid out groundwork for shifting the burden of infrastructure to state and local governments. Now, that will place an enormous pressure on towns like Bridgewater, and more specifically Bridgewater. The funding we have dedicated historically in the recent past to road reconstruction and maintenance is already anemic. Now we know we cannot necessarily rely on federal and state funding to make drastically needed improvements to our infrastructure, and that means roads, bridges, sidewalks, and so forth. But regardless, our team will do whatever it takes to turn over every rock looking for funding so that we can accomplish what we need to in terms of our roads and bridges. In 2017, we saw 3 large affordable housing projects make application to the Zoning Board of Appeals to construct over 500 units of housing in Bridgewater. Chapter 40B, the state law under which these applications were made, requires all cities and towns in Massachusetts to achieve a minimum threshold of 10% affordable housing units. It also allows developers to avoid most of the local zoning regulations and density requirements in return for allocating 25% of the units, the new housing units, as affordable. So to put that in perspective, Bridgewater has roughly 8,500 units of housing, which means we need to have roughly 850 affordable units. So if all 3 of these developments are approved in something close to their size by the ZBA, and they do in fact come to fruition, we will exceed the 850 unit threshold. That means that Bridgewater will have the ability to control a lot of, well, really control all of its own affordable housing developments thereafter. In 2017, we finalized the update to our open space and rec plan with a special look at passive recreational resources. We also asked, thanks to BSU, we asked one of our BSU interns to create a plan to implement the open space and rec plan, knowing that we do not have the resources to do what the plan actually calls for. So Anthony Hebert created a very well thought out plan which plots a course for us using volunteers and very limited staff resources. And partly because of his great work, and partly because he needs to see the financial side of the picture, I appointed Anthony to the Finance Committee. Sitting, as I tell everyone, sitting on the Finance Committee is really one of the best ways you can learn about the details, the ins and outs of municipal government, and learn the nooks and crannies of your town. So I welcome Anthony, and now that he's created a plan, he has to figure out how to fund it. Is there anybody else interested in the Finance Committee? In 2017, we asked OCPC to tackle the update to our 5-year-old housing production plan. The plan is important, even though we're coming towards the end of reaching our threshold for 10% affordability. The plan is important to complete because it insulates the town from any unwise affordable housing developments. It qualifies us for grant funding that might not otherwise be available. And I give credit to OCPC. They produced a sound plan which defines the kinds of developments and redevelopments we really want to focus on. And it also gives a great guide to the Affordable Housing Trust for its upcoming work. In 2017, we completed work on Phase 2 of our Complete Streets program. Our engineers compiled and ranked dozens of areas, mostly in the central business district, that were in dire need of upgrading and reconstruction. The list includes things as sidewalk reconstruction, traffic light installation, crosswalk placements, the intersection realignments, and so forth. Total cost of about $4 million total only begins to address the overall needs in town. Again, we were not successful in securing grant funding in the 2017 round to begin the first phase of construction, but we will continue to press for Complete Streets grant funding of up to $400,000 a year for the next several years, as long as that program does continue. In 2017, with the council's support, we put the long-abandoned McElwain School out for bid. The important historic structure is on the National Historic Record and is really an integral part of Bridgewater's history. It served as a school during the town's period of sort of industrialization during the 19th century, and was really a product of the success of some of the local factory owners. So frankly, I was assuming that the historic, both state and federal historic tax credits would be a really wonderful thing that would attract a lot of interest in that building as a historic renovation project. I assumed wrong on that one. We received one bid, which actually matched our request for proposal. And while we continue to analyze that bid and its benefits for Bridgewater, it is imperative, I believe, that we do something with that building in the very near future to abate the hazardous materials and get that building occupied and used. In 2017, with a new finance director at the helm and a very solid team in place, we laser focused on our outstanding financial issues. We began long overdue efforts to collect outstanding taxes, and quite frankly, our efforts proved very fruitful. Working with the finance team, our legal department, consisting at the time of Mark Gilday and Jason Rollins, were successful in their efforts to collect outstanding taxes owed on the Route 24 rest areas, which are taxable but not lienable. What does that mean? Well, for those who are unfamiliar with municipal finance, I'll simply say this is a rare feat for which both the finance team and the attorneys should be well thanked. Tony Salmonti, our finance director, used 2017 to implement processes and systems which should become routine in future years. He's given us access to data we can use to make important decisions about the future of Bridgewater, whether it's decisions on zoning, road repair, marijuana, housing, relationships with BSU or the Department of Corrections. All of those things, everything we do in town has financial considerations. So our ability to access solid financial data and apply it to decision-making processes is really the mark of a fiscally mature community, and I think we're almost there. Tony's developed a dynamic 5-year financial outlook, which allows us to show the council, the finance committee, team leaders, employees, residents, anybody that wants to wander in the front door, exactly where we will be in 5 years. And the impacts on our budget of things like collective bargaining agreements, healthcare costs, pension assessments, residential and commercial developments, and so on. So all of the progress we have made, of all the progress we've made, I think, over the last few years, this is probably one of the most important. Again, we are elevating the level of professionalism by which we operate, and that's the key. In 2017, we filed suit, speaking of professionalism, we filed suit against the Environmental Protection Agency and the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. At issue was the EPA's new 5-year sewer discharge permit for the town of Bridgewater that required us to make drastic upgrades to our sewer system within a very, very short period of time. We didn't object to the discharge thresholds and requirements. We strenuously objected because we felt the timelines were far too aggressive and would place a huge burden on our ratepayers far too quickly. So after several months of litigation and high-level settlement discussions, the EPA and the DEP agreed to extend the implementation schedule to 10 years, and more importantly, we had successfully argued that a 15-year timetable would be more appropriate if the 10-year schedule places an overly burdensome obligation on those who can't afford it. And it was unfortunate that it took litigation to accomplish this, but sometimes that's the route that you have to go to do what you think is right. 2017, with the help of our Water and Sewer Board, we finally designed a fix for the rusty water that has plagued Bridgewater for generations. We proposed a new $7 million water treatment plant, which will be built off High Street to treat water being pumped from the High Street wells. At the end of 2017, with valuable guidance from DEP and our engineers, we actually chose to delay that project by 1 year so that we could redesign the project to include important renovations to the actual wells, provide new storage, office space, and improvements to the water distribution garage. In 2017, we thrust ourselves forcefully into the 21st century by rolling out our water meter replacement program. The new water meters will not require the typical and annual visit to residents' homes. Instead, meters can be read electronically and water bills processed automatically. So we've eliminated human error as part of that equation. Residents and businesses, importantly, can also track their own water usage from their smartphone or from their computers. In 2017, after some delays, which I heard a lot about, we finished long overdue upgrades to the senior center's kitchen and bathrooms. But those upgrades are only one of many that are needed in that particular building and throughout town. 2017 was the first full year of the new public records law, passed by the legislature arguably to punish public agencies that stonewall requests for information. The law actually places a huge and costly burden on towns like Bridgewater. For those that are counting, we honored well over 100 public record requests in 2017 and spent hundreds of hours of staff time researching and generating documents. And quite frankly, most of them were frivolous requests designed to test our willingness to provide the public records. But as I've said, many times to our department leaders and our team leaders, almost any document that we have in this building is available for anyone that asks. Our whole world is a public record. So in any case, the unintended consequence of that is lost efficiency, expense to towns like ours, and staff lost productivity. 2017, however, saw good things. It saw the formalization of the group known as the Citizens for Civility and Respect in Bridgewater. The group, created after an unfortunate racially charged incident in town, is a group of concerned citizens, and they came together looking for ways to build cultural understanding and respect for people of every religion and background. 2017, the Bridgewater Improvement Association let us know that it had to scale back its contribution toward keeping the common and the downtown areas maintained. We worked closely with the association to arrange a plan that would keep them involved in keeping the common maintained, but placed the fiscal responsibility on the town to maintain our other parks and public grounds. The BIA will continue to refocus its attention to building its endowment so that it can continue to maintain what it has set out to maintain last year, this year, and the years thereafter. 2017 saw the formulation of a paid parking program, which was approved by the council early this year. The plan targets really an unmet need. BSU students and staff always look for parking close to the campus, so we've targeted parking areas which are not otherwise really used by Bridgewater residents or local businesses. And what I told the council at the time, and I still believe, while it's a relatively small thing, for us right now, it is a step on the way to building a fund to address many of our infrastructure needs in town. For instance, the revenue derived from paid parking can fund engineering costs for many sidewalk projects, parking lot improvements, and even parking garages. In 2017, we also made strides in trying to curb the opioid crisis that's plagued the southeastern part of the state and all over the nation. With BSU and other partners, we continue to participate in the Bridging Lives Coalition and the Plymouth County Opioid Awareness Coalition. We assigned officers to conduct overdose follow-up visits and with a recovery coach. We also recently were awarded a jail diversion grant by the Department of Public Health to hire a clinician to ride along with officers to respond to issues of mental health or substance abuse and provide social service to or treatment referrals. In 2017, the council approved a funding request to pay for a broad, comprehensive rezoning effort, which will begin later this spring with a build-out analysis and then culminate with a comprehensive set of zoning ordinances to be adopted by the town council. This effort is critical to the long-term growth of Bridgewater. It's critical to how we shape and encourage the growth that we want and curb the growth that we don't want. In 2017, we unveiled a cutting-edge web-based payment system, which allows residents to pay real and personal property taxes and some other fees from their smartphones or computers any time of the day or night. In 2017, we worked with the Wild and Scenic Taunton River to apply for federal funding to help us develop a long-term plan for our parks. So while we've been busy in 2017, our effectiveness really depends upon knowing where we're going. To set goals, we need to know the end game. To that end, we've begun a strategic planning process which will help inform our future and give us a roadmap to get there. The process will include robust participation from residents and volunteers with guidance from staff. But to continue to move forward, we are not waiting for the results of the strategic planning process. 2018 is upon us, and for 2018, I've set out a number of goals for myself and staff. In 2018, we must resolve the disposition of our empty buildings. I've proposed a disposition for the McElwain, and we'll be starting some construction on the upgrades to the Memorial Building in 2018. I'll also be proposing a disposition for the Town Hall and the Spring Street Garage, if all goes well. In 2018, we will carefully analyze the contract renewal for Comcast. We'll be planning extensive water main replacements and planning for extensive road work throughout town. And I will challenge the finance department to propose ways to fund those road improvements, which will put the burden on them and Anthony Hebert. We will discuss and decide how we'll proceed with the planning for the possible decommissioning of the High Street Dam. We'll plan a downtown revitalization and plot a course for ways to look to fund that. We'll start by building public support and consensus for solutions that work for Bridgewater. We'll participate in a streetlight conversion project to improve lighting in our neighborhoods and also reduce our electric usage. We will rebuild Elm Street to provide the spark to industrial development, which will begin to reduce the residential tax burden and spur new growth. We'll secure the threshold of 10% affordable housing and work to execute our housing production plan by developing affordable housing options that work for Bridgewater, such as the McElwain proposal. We will be designated a Housing Choice Initiative town, which will give us state funding for ongoing affordable housing work and also preferences in ongoing state funding. We will continue to work towards a solution for the Mitchell School, which ensures that our Bridgewater children attend a safe school that fully implements the district's educational program. We will work with the district to support its educational plan within the funding constraints of Proposition 2.5. We will finish the first comprehensive capital plan we have ever done. We will continue to build stability and professionalism by recruiting excellent staff, board and committee volunteers who want to do the best for Bridgewater. And finally, I would be horribly remiss if I didn't recognize some of the truly unsung heroes in the town of Bridgewater. The accomplishments of roadway superintendent Ron Ledoux and his small staff are quite frankly stunning in light of the resources that we can afford to give them. To give you an idea, generally Bridgewater spends a total of about $2,100 per person annually. Take all of our town spending, divide by the number of residents, and we spend about $2,100 per person. The state average is $4,100 per person. Other cities and towns, DPWs spend an average of $26,500 per road mile. Bridgewater spends a little less than half of that at about $1,200. The roadways department budget is almost back to the level that it was in 2004. That's 14 years ago. So what we ask our roadways department to do with few staff and few dollars is enormous and honestly cannot be sustained. Regardless, Ron and his staff go at it every day and give this town 100%. For that, they are the unsung heroes of Bridgewater. So I'll end on this note, unless I haven't used up my allotted time. I have never seen a more committed and dedicated group of employees and volunteers than I have in Bridgewater. I thank them for their commitment to public service. I also thank my assistant, Michael Spagone, who exemplifies the spirit of municipal government service, and Council Clerk Ann Holmberg, who keeps the council and me on an even keel and can answer almost any question I might have day or night. So I ask that you give them and yourselves a round of applause for the work that you do on behalf of Bridgewater. Thank you, and good night until 7:30. And with that, I'll turn it over to President Tim Fitzgibbons.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everybody for coming. I particularly want to welcome. These are just notes I have. I'm not really reading. I don't do well at that. I don't know, something about the Hunt School years ago. But I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and welcome Senator Pacheco, Representative D'Amelia from the State House, our state reps and senator who works so hard on our behalf, trying to get things done for our community. Certainly appreciated for you being here and all the hard work you do on our behalf that not many people see every day. So that's certainly appreciated. President Clark from Bridgewater State and his Director of University and Community Partnerships, Sue McComb. Again, unsung heroes of the town, as the town manager just said, a lot of stuff that people don't see behind the scenes that you guys at the university do for us, and certainly appreciate. Chairperson of the school committee, Patricia Riley, and member of the school committee, Lillian Holbrook, for being here. Thank you, and we very much enjoy working with you folks and trying to do the best job we can together as a community. As Superintendent Swenson says, well, come on, give me the one family, one team, or something along those lines, right? I have this bumper sticker on the back of my car. Welcome to the town council, the town manager, and residents who are here tonight, and of course those watching on BTV, which are probably in the tens. But that's okay. It'll be recorded for posterity. Tonight we're here to talk about the state of the town, and let me just say we're better than we once were, and we're not as good as we want to be. We're still transitioning. You know, the town manager covered a lot of the accomplishments that happened in the town, so I'm not gonna. There's at least 3 pages here I can get rid of because he talked about them very well. But really, what I'd like to talk about is to kind of give a primer on our form of government, where we were, where we are, and where we should be going, and a primer on our town finances. Where do we get our money? Where's it spent? And this is really high level. It's, that's a warning for you. The devil's always in the details, as you know. Back in 2011, we changed our form from open town meeting and board of selectmen to council manager. We had some fits and starts along the way, if you all remember that. But I think we're pretty settled now in that the town council is the legislative body of the town, and the town manager is the chief executive officer, and that's how we try to approach things. But everything starts with the council. And as the town manager indicated, we have a strategic plan subcommittee working, and we're going to be developing one. The town council, in cooperation and working with the people of the town, the employees of the town, needs to drive the goals, drive the plan of the town. And that's the key role that we have, just as when I served on the school committee, that was the key role that the school committee had. And the most important document we have in that whole process is our town budget. It sets our priorities, and it ought to be used to measure our successes and failures as the primary goal. If we don't allot money to a certain project, there's no way we as a town council can expect it to get done. We do have to do a better job articulating long-term goals in addition to the annual goals in the budget. We can't lurch from priority to priority, from month to month, day to day, year to year. We need to see further down the road, 4, 5, 6 years, and say, where do we want to be? We need to steadily drive toward that with the budgets that we implement every year and make sure that we're going where the residents want, where the employees need us to go, and where, most importantly, it makes Bridgewater the best community that we can make. As I said, the town manager can only act within the budget he has, but he also needs to bring ideas to the council for the long-term improvement projects that we are facing the town. And this is a dynamic that we need to work on as a council, I think, and certainly including myself in that as well. So that's the town council part. We're also part, as we know, of a regional school district, and in government speak, if I may lapse into it, they're their own municipal entity. And it's important that we address their issues. Chief among them, to me, is solving, as the town manager indicated, the elementary school building problem that has existed since the Mitchell School collapsed. There are a host of other issues which we need to work on collaboratively as well, and I believe that the town manager and the superintendent have a very good working relationship to address those issues, and expect those to be addressed, as he said, professionally and appropriately moving forward. I know Michael has brought a lot of professionalism to the job of town manager. Moving on to town financing, the majority of our money comes from real estate taxes. You live in town, if you own a business in town, you pay taxes. And it's imperative that we spend these taxes appropriately. Now, it's important to us to raise our revenue every year, and we do have a mechanism to do that by 2.5%. But the other important thing that the town manager addressed was business and industry. Business and industry use a lot less services than residents do. They definitely don't use schools, that's for one thing, and that's a big cost to the town. And it's important we attract those businesses. We can't dictate what businesses should be in town, nor can we magically wave a wand and make businesses appear. We can, however, create a climate where businesses want to come, and that's what the town manager is proposing to do on Elm Street. And this involves proper visioning on his part, our part, and the execution of that vision by the town manager, the town planner, the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, and others who need to understand what the town council's vision is, what we're trying to accomplish long-term, and work to implement those visions. We, all of us as a town, need to be working toward the same goals and not at cross purposes. We have to accept that things will change. Bridgewater 2020 must and will look different than Bridgewater 1970, Bridgewater 1920, Bridgewater 1820. I hope everyone recalls Wayne's World and Garth's famous quote, "I fear change." My advice is, please don't. Continuing on with our finances, the state of the town continues to improve in our finances. Since 2010, we've come back from the brink of receivership. led by Mr. Wood and other councilors, current and former, we have been disciplined in sticking with the budget process each year that was recommended to us by our auditors as a way to come back and make sure that we weren't spending every nickel and looking under the seat cushions for more. And we've done that. We must continue this effort. Mr. Dutton mentioned this, but I had it in my notes, that I hate to bring up any town employee because they all do such a great job for the town each and every day, but I do want to call out the work of Tony Salmonte, our finance director this past year. He's developed an Excel spreadsheet that he shared with at least some of the council I know, so we can quickly, easily, and accurately project our town's revenue and expense picture for 5 years or more into the future. We are very able to say, these are what our contracts mean, these are what expenses are coming down the pike, and we're able to then make rational plans moving forward and not be surprised year to year with certain increases or decreases. This is an invaluable tool for us as a council to have. Thank you, Tony. With this tool, we as a council are able to better understand what-if scenarios. What if we do that, as Mr. Dutton indicated? If we had this, if we have that, if we do it this way. All of those decisions that a town might make, that a council might make, have financial implications, and this model will help us make those in the best interest of the town. And this kind of ties back to the discussion we had about the form of government and goal setting. The council now knows how much money we're spending by department and what percentage of revenue that is. And I like to use an analogy of a pie. Town has a certain pie every year, and it gets to slice it up. That's what the council does with the budget. It says, we're going to give this big of a pie over here, slice, we're going to this big of a slice over here. Maybe the recreation department has 5% of that pie. They don't, they'd kill for it, by the way. And our highway department has got 10, and they don't. Trust me on that either. But if we know if we allocate the same slices next year, what we can afford to do in each department. It's the town council's job to set goals and objectives by deciding how to slice the pie up. We know how big the pie is going to grow from year to year because of Proposition 2.5, what our new growth rate is, and et cetera. Now, each and every department advocates for a slice of the pie. Everybody says, they believe they know what they need to accomplish their objectives. And at the end of the process, they're certainly free to advocate for us to come before everybody, the voters, and ask for a bigger pie. But our job as a council is to slice up the pie we have and make sure that everyone is treated fairly within that. And I hope Mr. Dolan doesn't mind me recognizing him and thanking him for coming. Welcome. Vice Chairperson of the BR School Committee, Mike Dolan, just came in. So I acknowledged everyone else, so I didn't want to make you feel left out. And so that's where we are. We and we're in the process right now as a town council of slicing up that pie and trying to make sure that all the needs of the town are met. And as Mr. Dutton indicated, we do operate with certain fiscal constraints. And so that's where I'd like to end the state of the town tonight, though, is with you, the people of Bridgewater, the residents and taxpayers. To the extent that the state of the town is strong and growing stronger, it's because of you. You're the ones paying the bills. You're the ones choosing to make a life in our town. You are the reason we're here tonight. And I think I can confidently speak for the rest of the council when I say, thank you for making Bridgewater the amazing town that it is. Let me just conclude by saying it's a privilege to stand before you to talk tonight about the state of our town. I don't take it for granted for 1 minute. Thank you very much. And I would ask you all, in whatever way, shape, or form you can, to help us to continue to improve the state of our town. Volunteer where you can. You won't regret it. Thank you very much for your attention here tonight. God bless America, Commonwealth, and the town of Bridgewater. Thank you. 8 minutes before the town council meeting begins, and our council clerk told me I had to leave 5, so I did a good job.